Hi, I'm Kimmy with On William Street, and we are here to help you become a more confident quilter from the piecing to the quilting and everything in between. So this week we are going to be working on month 2 of our Mystery Quilt Along. So this month we are going to be working with the fabrics that you chose that have 6 different fabrics. Ours are going to be our yellow. So you're going to have one that's a half of a yard and then 5 other fabrics in that color that are a quarter of a yard. And if you haven't got your fabric yet and you're wondering, yes, fat quarters will work. So go ahead and grab those fabrics. And the first thing we're going to do is take all of your fabrics that are only a quarter of a yard and we're going to cut them into 7-inch squares. And we need 5 7-inch squares from each of those quarter yard cuts. Then grab your fabric that is a half of a yard and we're going to do something a little bit different before we cut those squares. What we want to do is we're going to cut off one bigger square that we need a little bit later on for the quilt, and we want to make sure that we don't cut our fabric wrong so that we don't have that piece that we need later. So we're going to go ahead and get it cut first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our half yard cut, and we need a square that is 13¼ inches from this piece before we cut any of our 7-inch squares, but we only need one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and unfold it. We don't need to worry about cutting 2. And then the first thing I want to do is I do want to cut the selvage off. So I'm just going to bring it over here and line it up so that I can get a nice straight cut. Now that that's gone, I'm going to use my mat. If you have a nice big ruler that you can cut 13-inch square out of, that's super helpful. I do not right now, so I'm going to just use the marks on my cutting mat and I'm going to line it up directly on that 1-inch line, and then I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to cut the 13¼ inches. And you can just cut the whole way across your half yard. It will be fine. We'll have plenty for the squares that we need afterwards. And then we're going to cut that 13½ inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and move this out of the way, and I'm going to come back after I've cut this square and we'll just cut the same 5 7-inch squares out of that as well. So that's what that extra is for. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to cut nice and square along any of these lines. And it doesn't really matter which one. We'll just do a little bit of math here in a second. So I am on the 16-inch line and I need it to be 13¼ inches. So I'm going to minus 13 first, which gives me 3, but then I need that 1/4 inch. So I should be on the 2 3/4 line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. Yep, that's exactly where I want to be. Just double check it real quick. And again, just making sure that your fabric is staying nice and square using the lines on your ruler to make sure that everything is nice and square. It'll make it so much easier later. So now we have our 1 square that we need, and we're just going to set that aside for later on. We don't need that quite yet. And we can cut our 7-inch squares. So like I said, we only need 5 of them. So I am actually going to go to this opposite side. And cut off the selvage on this side as well. And I'm going to cut 3 sets of 7 inches across because I'm only going to be able to get 2 out of the width of the half a yard. So I've got 21, so I'm going to come over here to my 14. And these aren't squared on the edges yet. I'm going to do that in a moment. I'm just going to go ahead and unfold it again. Then I'm going to come over to, without moving the fabric, I'm going to come over to the 7. Oh, because I cut off on that, I'm going to have to retrim that. So I do need to move these out of the way now. And and we're going to recut that. So if you ever do find yourself, if you accidentally cut off a little bit, or if you're cutting a whole bunch of pieces, you'll kind of find that over time your square can get off a little bit, and you'll need to come back in and re-square up that edge. So just check it after every few rows if you're working on a project that has you cutting a lot of rows off of something. So now I'm on the 20, come over here to the 13. And that's going to give me 3 sets. This yellow is extra, we aren't going to need that. And then we're going to come over, and I'm actually going to line all 3 of these up on top of each other, just to make cutting it a little bit easier and save a little bit of time. And I've got them lined up on one of these straight lines so that I know that it's nice and square. My ruler is only 6 inches, so I can't use the ruler. And first, I'm going to cut off the end here. Then we're going to go, I'm on the 1, so I'm going to come over to the 8 and cut. And again, without moving it, I need to come over to the 15 to cut my second 7-inch square. And then we do have one extra 5-inch square, so you can just set that one aside. And we have all 5 squares that we need, and the big 13¼ inch square as well. Now that we have all of our squares cut, we're going to make our half square triangles. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your fabrics and you're just going to mix them up. Doesn't really matter, there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason. You should basically have enough to match each fabric with one of each of the other prints. So just lay them all out and match them all up, and then we're going to sew them into half square triangles. And just keep going till everything has a set. So there's 2 of each, and you're going to put them right sides together. And what we're going to do now is we need to draw a line. So you have 2 options for this. You can either grab a pencil or a fabric marking pen and a little ruler. This is our 1x12, which we love to use for things like this. And you can take your pencil and draw a line across. Or if you don't want to draw a line, or maybe you don't have a ruler with you that you can use easily, you can also just fold it in half and do a nice finger press all the way down. And you see that that's going to leave a nice crease as well that you can use. Then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of that line. So after you've sewn on both sides, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to trim down the center on that line. And we now have 2 of our half square triangles. So we can take these over to the ironing board and just go ahead and press them open, and then repeat with all of your 7-inch squares. So after you've pressed all of your blocks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to separate them out into 2 different sets. We're going to have one set that's going to have 12 blocks in it, and we're going to have one set that's going to have 16 blocks in it. And we're going to make a couple of panels. So take your blocks and you're just going to mix them up randomly. There doesn't have to be any particular order. And we're going to sew them together into one panel is going to be 3x4, and one of your panels is going to be 4x4. I am going to go ahead on my panel, and all of my lines are going to go exactly the same direction, but that is entirely up to you. Be creative, have fun with it. We are actually going to be cutting these up again later, so it's not going to look exactly like the panel is laid out. You can have some fun with this. Don't overthink it too much though. Kind of try to mix things up, keep the fabrics from being super close to each other unless you have a specific design you're going for. Like I said, don't overthink it too much. Lay them out, have fun. And then we're going to sew these together to make the final panel. So I'm going to flip this one. So we're going to just go ahead and sew the top 4 together, and then we're going to sew the middle 4 together, the bottom 4, and then we'll sew those rows together. And then repeat to make another panel that is 4x4 blocks. So after you have both of your panels all sewn together, you can go ahead and give them a nice press, and then go ahead and set those aside. Like I said, they're not going to stay like this in the quilt. We're going to do a little bit more to them, but we're going to do that in a little bit of a later month. So just set them aside with all of your other parts until we are ready to do that. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can shoot us an email or comment here on the video, and we'll make sure to answer and respond to those. And if you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so that you're notified when we post videos. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or sign up for our email newsletter where you'll receive a reminder every week when we post a video and see the fun things that we're working on. And we'll see you next week.